Hey, it's me. Good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Now, we're just going to talk about one thing in this video, or one case, and that is the case of Jack O'Sullivan. Where is Jack? Where is this young man? Just not a boy, maybe not quite a man yet, on his way to adult. He's an adult, of course. Early 20s, just graduated from university, massive future in front of him, nice lad, family, from a nice family, good relationship with his family. Typical young lad, enjoyed going out, having a few sherbets here and there. I don't know if he took any substances as well. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But, pretty much typical of what young people do. And this boy, which I say boy, this man, off he went to a party midweek. It was in the week, like I suppose for students and things, they don't only go out at weekends, do they? And this was in Bristol in the UK. And off he went to this party with friends that he didn't know that well. His mum, Catherine, says he didn't know them that well. They weren't, long time friends. He was and ahhing whether to go or not. Anyway, he went. And that was the last his mum ever saw of him, except on CCTV, because Jack never returned home that night. And we are talking about nearly 2 years now that this man, or this young man, has been missing. No idea where he is, no clues, nothing's been found, none of his possessions. The police say he went into the water. But his mum says, well, there's no evidence that he went into the water. There's no evidence of anything. What happened to him? Did he come to foul play? Or did he go into the water? There's not even any evidence anyway that he is dead. But the police, and I suppose in a way, it's natural to think that after no contact from him for over 2 years, this lad, because of the relationship he had with his family, there's no way that if Jack could communicate with his family, that he wouldn't. But there could be reasons why he can't. He might even have amnesia. He may have been whisked off to another country, another place. Who knows what's happening? So it's probably a slim chance that he's still alive, but that doesn't mean to say there is no chance that he's still alive. But whatever the facts of this case, his mum will never rest until she finds out what happened to her son. And who can blame her? Any of us that have got children, adult children, could you imagine? Do your children, your adult children, once they're over 18, really, and maybe even younger, off they go. Off they pop on a night out. Bye. See you tomorrow. Well, you're lucky to get goodbye sometimes. Door shuts behind them. You have no idea where they're going, who they're with. Doesn't even matter if they tell you where they've gone and who they're with. They may not be there. Sometimes people, young adults, they don't want to tell their parents where they're going or who they're going to be with. So, I think we know more or less that Jack was where he said he was, because obviously other people saw him at the party. But I'm going to read you the sequence of events from the website, the Find Jack website. Very strange, this case. So the more I think about it, the more I do feel there may have been foul play in this case. Now, it's still entirely possible that Jack did fall in the water, even though he's never been found, or any trace of him has ever been found. It's still, anything's possible in this crazy world, isn't it? But the reason that we're talking about it is because I do like to talk about this case anyway, every now and again, just to remind people about it, because we followed it right from the beginning. But recently, Kathy, Jack's mum, she has been on this morning, like the breakfast TV in the UK, to talk about the case and any developments with David Wilson, who's a respected criminologist. And so I can't show you the video because it'll be copyright struck, but I can tell you what she said, and I've put the link to the video in the description. So if you want to watch the actual interview with Catherine about what happened to Jack and any new developments, what's happening now, how this woman even puts one foot in front of another, I don't know, but she's a very strong character. She's very dignified. She's very calm. Inside, she's probably screaming, and probably, there's probably some days where she doesn't even want to get out of bed, I would imagine, worrying about what's happened to her son. But she never shows it. She's always very dignified in interviews, etc. And I'm going to tell you about that interview that she did on this morning. But if you want to see the actual interview, the link is in the description. So first of all, I just say my thank yous, etc. Little tiny bit of waffle, not lots. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, please remember it is completely free to subscribe or like the video. Get your DNA on that subscribe button and press the notification bell so that you get any notifications of any developments in any of the cases that we're following. And thank you to all of you that have done that so far. Special thank you as always to my members, to those who've bought Ko-fis, sent super stickers, PayPals, etc. Thank you. People that send me emails, sending me these sort of videos. A lot of you are interested in Jack's case. I get quite a lot of emails about Jack's case. Thank you to those of you who've sent those emails, or any emails that people send me, any positive interaction you have with my channel. Thank you so much. Hello, you lovely lurkers. Hello to replay crew. And who I think we've only got Billy in the chat so far. Hi, I'm good, thank you. I hope you're recovering from your jet lag. I'm good. I'm still hot, but it's not as hot as it was. So it has got, the moment my current complaint always is, oh, it's hot, it's hot. It's still hot, but not quite as hot, I'd say. I've been out about interpreting. And I just wanted to talk about that because it made me think, I took people to the doctors, interpreting for them, and, several health issues that these people had, and, old age, if you like, I suppose. They were very young seeming, they were for their age. Takes its toll on you, nobody wants to die young, of course. But of course, the older you get, then health issues creep in. And health is everything, really, isn't it? I mean, obviously, there are so many different problems you might have. It might be financial problems, might be relationship problems, might be mental health issues. Physical health and mental health, I suppose. These are things you can't put a price on, can you? Once your health starts to fail, thank God for doctors and, medicines that keep people going these days. So it just made me think. I thought it's quite sad as people get older in one way. But I'm looking. We talk about the couple that I took who'd been together for a long, long time, loving each other. There's so many people out there that are really fighting struggles like caring for their loved ones, even though maybe they need a bit more specialized care, really. But especially for people here in Spain, or anyone who's in a foreign country, don't speak the language. It's very difficult. I just feel like there's a lot of people out there trying to cope with loved ones who are ill, and it could be younger ones because it could be mental illness. It's a very lonely place for the carer as well. So it's a lonely place for the person who's ill, either mentally or physically. But the person that's looking after them, trying to, you know, I don't know, trying to cope with the situation, it's very tough, very tough. So I just want to send out a prayer, not only to the people that I took this morning to the doctors, but to anyone who's out there trying to cope with looking after a loved one, either young or old, because sometimes it's younger people struggling, especially with mental health, but maybe even with physical health as well, because you're not guaranteed to be healthy just because you're young. Sometimes I just heard today about somebody that I know who's young and has a brain tumor. So nothing's guaranteed, is it? So this what I just want to send out some positive thoughts, some prayers to not only the people that are suffering with whatever the issue is, but also the people that are trying to look after them, because they have to be strong for them. And that's difficult because that's your loved one that's ill or struggling with whatever situation, and you've got to cope with it. It's hard. So, got these videos out there, data, they're not people, not doing, what's the words I'm looking for? They're not like doing anything that's going to go in the papers tomorrow or whatever, or be, go viral on social media. Just literally coping day by day with life and loved ones who've got problems. And I just wanted to send out a virtual hug to all those people, because it's a lonely place sometimes. Um, when you're trying to deal with your loved one's issues, whatever they are. Okay, that's it. That's my waffle over with. Let's get now, which really leads up to talking about Jack's case, and particularly his family and how they're coping. So let me just take my banner off. So I would say, so Jack's mum, Kathy, no, Jack has a father and a brother who also have spoke about the case, tried to do things. But I do think Catherine is the more vocal, isn't she? She's the one that tends to do interviews. I've had some exchanges with Kathy. She probably doesn't even remember, over Facebook, and that's probably a lot of people send her messages and or make comments of support. But do you know what? She also gets trolled. I mean, this just amazes me. There's some sickos out there that would troll a grieving mother. I've had people put comments on my video saying, "Oh, she needs to get over it. Her boy is gone. Like she'd lost her handbag or something instead of her son." I mean, just horrible. People are just so. Most people aren't so unfeeling, of course. We have to remember that. But you always get that 5-10% of idiots, callous people who seem to think it is something you can get over. And to me, I just think, how could you ever get over it? You say goodbye to your son, off they go for a night out, and you're just thinking, oh, they're going for a night out, like maybe they've done hundreds of times before, and they never come home. And then on top of that, you've got trolls. People who don't even know you making comments about whether you should move on. Move on. You're never going to move on. For fuck's sake. Oh, what is wrong with these people? Anyway, so this is the family. This is Catherine there. Obviously, this is Jack's graduation day. His dad there on the right and his brother on the left. And they're missing Jack. So this family is not complete now. That was the complete family. It's not complete now. Jack has gone, disappeared into the ether, like all the other missing people, beamed up onto Starship Enterprise like Nancy Guthrie. But obviously, no, he hasn't been beamed up. He is somewhere. This young lad is somewhere. And when you look at the photos, he's frozen in time. There won't be any new photos of Jack, or unless he is found alive. He's like frozen at that age. Over 2 years ago. No new photos. And it reminds me a little bit of a case here in Spain. Henry. There was a young lad here, it was quite a long time ago now. He went out on a New Year's Eve and his mum never saw him again. And he's still missing. Presumed dead, but is he dead? Probably. But and murdered by friends. So, do you know, the thing is, with these cases, and I really do believe this a little bit with Jack as well, and you'll understand why when I start going through the timeline, because they've got a very good website that I'm going to read out to you. The thing about Jack is he'd gone to this party in the Hotwells area of Bristol with people that he didn't know that well. There are rumours that there was some sort of altercation at this party. High pie in the sky. Anyway, whatever happened, Jack decided to leave, go and get a taxi, texted his mum, said he'd be home soon. She offered to go and pick him up like you do. I've done that with my son so many times. You don't want to really go out at 3:00 in the morning, but you want to go and make sure they get home safe, don't you? It's difficult to sort of leave them there. Anyway, he said, no, I'm fine. I'm going to get a taxi. No problem. You don't have to come out and get me. And apart from images on CCTV, that is the last time Kathy had any contact with her son. So where is he? Is he in the water? Like the police say, because, you know, there is a lot of water around where Jack went missing. And, you know, statistics do show that when young men go out and drink too much, they quite often do fall into the water. It's a regular occurrence. And that's really what the police sort of almost jumped to that conclusion. But I personally think there's much more to this because of the other circumstances. To me, why have his possessions never been found? Nothing. His phone, etc. We'll go through the things he had with him in a moment because it's on the website. And his phone was still registering a signal at nearly 7:00 in the morning at an address in Hotwells. Why was that? Did someone have his phone? Have they still got his phone? You know, did somebody rob Jack? Mug him? I don't know. Where are all these things? Where's his clothes? Where is he? Not only where is he, but normally something is found. And now Catherine revealed in this latest interview that she did that the harbour master from the area has done a report and said anyone who goes missing, normally in those circumstances, who goes into the water, they are found, they are recovered. Why has Jack not been recovered? And even the police did a similar report, not as detailed, but they came to the same conclusion. So, this is what I suppose Kathy is hanging on to. She doesn't want to think her son is dead or in the water or been swept out to sea. She doesn't want to think it, but also there's no evidence for that. So that's, I think, the way Kathy looks at it is, I've no evidence that Jack is dead. So until I've got evidence he's dead, he's my son, and I'm going to think that he could be alive. And who can blame her? Any of us would feel the same way over a son or a daughter, wouldn't we? Who disappeared in similar circumstances. And of course, there are lots of people out there where it does happen. Thing is, once your children become adults, when your children are little, I've said this before, you think, when they're older and they're more independent and blah, 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 blah. But it gets harder. Parenting definitely gets harder the older your child gets, because you lose complete control over them and you have no idea what they're out doing, who they're talking to, if they're taking substances, drinking, smoking, whatever they're doing. You don't know. And, you lose that control over them. Whereas when they're little, you take them out with you. You come home, you put them to bed at 8 o'clock and they're in bed while you can get on with other things or whatever. But as soon as they get old enough to go off and do their own thing, it's really quite terrifying. I still find it terrifying now. My son is older than Jack. I don't think it'll ever change. You worry about them whatever, don't you? Anyway, if you've got adult kids, you'll know what I mean. I know that for a fact. So let's have a look at what happened. Just so they've set up a really good website, because you know what has happened is, over the years that Jack's been missing, Catherine has had to do her own detective work because the police have been rubbish. And, oh, bless his little face. Kathy is one of those people who would have always respected the police, and she's seen that the police, for whatever reason, in this case, certainly, they've just been crap. They didn't investigate enough into the CCTV. They've not investigated enough into, they have searched for Jack. I'm not going to say they've not searched for him or that they've done nothing. But, as we've seen before, missing persons cases, if they're not found within a couple of months, really, then it is up to the family to keep it going, because the police won't, because they've got lots of other missing people coming up all the time, lots of other cases. To the police, Jack is just another case, and he's a young lad who went missing near water. As far as they're concerned, that's all they need to know. So Kathy has, had to do her own detective work. She's had to find her own CCTV footage that the police had missed, etc. She's had to hire private detectives, private investigators, to try and get to the bottom of what has happened to her son. And she's never going to stop. Of course she's never going to stop. As long as there's breath in this woman's body, in her own body, she will be searching to find out what's happened to Jack. Of course she will. So now a little bit of a worrying thing, I think, is this £100,000 reward. Because if nobody's come forward after 2.5 years, or however long it's been, 2 years certainly, when there's a massive reward like that, you think, is anyone ever going to come forward? But I still think so. Personally, it's my own personal opinion, I think that Jack's disappearance is connected to that party and to that address in Hotwells where his phone was traced to. Somebody knows what happened to Jack. And I think not only the perpetrator, but other people know. But there's allegiances. Maybe people are scared of getting involved. Maybe they're scared of the perpetrator if there's been an act of violence in this case. Maybe the other people are scared of what might happen to them. Maybe they're scared of being implicated in what happened to Jack. And those things can change, and people grow up. So, if the other people that were involved in this case, maybe they were in their early 20s, same as Jack, then they'll be getting older. Eventually, they'll probably get married, have children of their own. So, there's a chance that one day it may come out, but it just doesn't seem to be coming out at the moment. Either nobody knows anything or they just don't want to talk about it. So here you go. Have you seen Jack O'Sullivan? 22 at the time of his disappearance. He's had 2 birthdays since he went missing. He would now be 24. 5'10", 178 centimeters, slim build, short brown hair, blue eyes. Missing since the 2nd of March 2024, so over 2 years. Where is this boy? One reward of £100,000 can be claimed by a person or group of persons, excluding police officers. No police officers can claim, who provide information that leads directly or indirectly to Jack O'Sullivan being physically reunited with Catherine Allen or Benjamin O'Sullivan. Now, when they say physically reunited, I'm sure that means even if sadly, Jack has passed from this earth, this family, they need to know what's happened to Jack. They deserve to know. If they're not going to get the ideal case scenario where they're actually reunited with him and he's alive, at least, they should be able to bury him, say goodbye to him, Hi, Biscuit. Good morning. Yes, very similar to Claudia Lawrence's disappearance, because the only difference is the police strongly believe that Jack went into the water. Now, he may have gone into the water. Statistics show that young men who are walking near water late at night after they've had a drink or whatever quite often end up in the water. Riley Strain, that was a high-profile case we covered from the US, wasn't it? And he was found eventually. But not only young men, and it was interesting in the video. If you get a chance to watch the video from this morning, David Wilson, Professor David Wilson, the criminologist, he actually brought up the case of Nicola Bulley. And he was saying that we do have to remember, because he's obviously on Catherine's side, and he thinks that maybe there may be more to this case than meets the eye. But he did say, he didn't mention any names of diving experts, but he did say in the Nicola Bulley case, just a few days over, everyone had said, over the diving expert, who I'm not going to mention his name because I'm sick of him, said categorically that Nicola was not in the water, didn't he? And then just a few days later, she was found in the water. So, we don't know. It could be that one day Jack is found in the water, but surely something of his would have been found. His clothes. We'll have a look at the items that he had with him at the time. If he'd gone into the water, according to the expert, and I'm not talking about a paid expert, I'm talking about the guy who contacted Catherine. Actually, it wasn't Catherine who contacted the guy, a guy who knows about tides and, what happens with the water in that area. How bodies are always found if they end up in the water, but Jack has not been found. So in his opinion, Jack did not go into the water, but we always have to remember there's still that chance that they're wrong. So we've got to keep all avenues open. Now, my point of doing this video is, and I will every couple of months, couple of weeks, if there's new information, I just don't want Jack's name to be forgotten. I mean, you wish you could mention everybody's name. There's so many missing people out there. But, and Catherine always comes over, his mum always comes over, so dignified, so resolute. I just think, God, how did they get through his birthdays? How did they get through Christmases? How do they even cope? I just, you only got to imagine it happening to your son or daughter. How do you even cope? How do you even begin to build a life? I just don't know. Anyway, they have. But thank you for that, Kelly. Yes, I have covered Claudia. If you key in Claudia Lawrence into my channel, it should come up. So all relevant information should be provided to any of the following. Then you've got an email. So this is the website, findjackosullivan.co.uk. It's a very well organised website. All the information there that you need. If you do know anything, or maybe you know somebody who knows something, maybe if you're from that area, Bristol, the UK, Hotwells, maybe somebody's been out drinking one night with you and they've mentioned something about Jack O'Sullivan. Somebody knows something, I think. It's either he's gone in the water by an accident or this is foul play and somebody knows. So you can contact Missing People Charity. If you don't want to speak to the police, you can just email the family directly. You can speak to the Missing People Charity, or you can contact the police. There's even a PO box address where you could send an anonymous tip. You do not have to say who you are, but of course, if you want the £100,000 reward, you're going to have to probably say who you are. So here's the circumstances. Look at this. This is Bristol. There's Jack there. Now, you can tell when you watch Jack walking, he does look drunk, I've got to admit. I mean, I don't know Jack, but he was walking very sort of front forwards, like he was, listen, we've all done it. I've done it, where you're sort of walking, but it's almost like, a sort of a toddler just learning to walk. Once you set off, you can't stop. And this is why the police think he ended up in the water. They think he's gone like down a hill and he's not been able to stop and he's gone over and into the water. Well, maybe. But where's his clothes? Where's his body? So it's now over 18 months since 24-year-old Jack O'Sullivan went missing on March the 2nd, 2024, following a night out in Hotwells, Bristol. Jack, having attempted to get a taxi home, was last seen on CCTV on the morning of March the 2nd at approximately 3:40 a.m, walking up the Bennett Way slip road, heading back towards Hotwells. Now, I don't know that area at all, but some of you watching who are from that area, you will know it. Maybe one of you watching knows what happened to Jack, because, I might only be a small YouTube channel, but I know if people know about Jack, especially because lately there's been a lot of talk about it, because Catherine's been on, on this morning and this, that and the other. It's quite likely that people who know what's happened to Jack, not necessarily that they've done anything to him, but maybe they know someone who has done something to him. Just keys in Jack O'Sullivan in YouTube and sees what videos come up. Maybe that you're watching this and you know what's happened to Jack. Well, you need to do the right thing, because this family are desperate to find out This is a grieving mother. She can't even grieve because she doesn't know what she's grieving for. Because she doesn't know if he's dead, alive, or what he is. All she knows is she hasn't seen him for over 2 years. So this is the strange thing for me as well. His phone was still active. So if he went in the water, how long would a phone stay active for in the water? But not only that, his phone was still active and it placed him at an address at 5:40 a.m. in the Granby Hill area. Now, if you're from Bristol, you'll know that area. I don't know it because I don't know Bristol. And his phone continued to be live on the network till 6:44 a.m. So what happened in between 3:40 a.m. when he was last caught on CCTV and 6:44 a.m. before his phone clicked off? That's a long time, isn't it? 3 hours. What happened? Where was Jack in those 3 hours? So nothing has been seen or heard of Jack since the early hours of that morning. And despite the authorities' efforts, the investigation has hit a standstill, leaving his family desperate for answers. So here's what he was wearing. Now you can see he's not, he's a well-dressed young man. He's not, he's like quite a conventional dresser for a young man. Do you know what I mean? It's not like flamboyant fashion. It's all very, conservative, I suppose. He was wearing a green khaki Barber jacket. He was wearing brown Ralph Lauren trainers, similar to the picture. Navy blue, got any of Jack's clothes back. And a cream knit lamb's wool jumper. Again, similar to the picture. This is what he was wearing. Now, the thing is, if Jack was wandering around, I don't know what that area is. Maybe it's not a very salubrious area. And maybe there were bad actors wandering around. He's got Ralph Lauren trainers, a Barber jacket. They're not cheap. Maybe he had an iPhone. And he was, this is an important thing as well. He tried to phone the party that he'd been at. He tried to phone someone at the party. They missed the call, and when they tried to phone him back, they said that Jack, or presumably Jack, answered the phone, said hello, and then the phone cut off. Was Jack mugged? Was he mugged for his phone and his trainers? I mean, was it a homeless person? Was it a drug addict? Who knows? And these are the other items that he had on his person when he went missing, none of which have been found. So he had a black card holder, his driving license, a black iPhone 11 in a red silicone case, an Emporio Armani watch. Well, we know for a fact people quite often get robbed for their watches, don't they? That's common these days. So there were things there for somebody who wanted easy money. There were things like his iPhone, his watch, etc. And maybe they hoped he had cash. So he had his house key. He had an AirTag in a brown case. A Peugeot 108 key fob, so he had his car keys with him. A Monzo debit card. So these are all items Jack had on his person, but none of which have ever been found. So let's look at the timeline. So this website is very, very good. It's very clear. So at 1:50 a.m., he sent a message about getting home and said he would get a taxi. So Jack and his mum got on really well. So these messages were going backwards and forwards between them. She was still awake. She's probably worrying about him. Would he get home okay? Wondering if she'd have to go and get him, pick him up. So at 1:50 a.m., he sent a message saying he was coming home. Now, there has been talk about an altercation at this party. We don't know for certain. That's not been confirmed by anybody, not by the family or the police. At 2:53 a.m., he was seen leaving the party and he was trying to get a taxi. And then at 3:24, that's when he tried to call someone who was still at the party. Then at 3:25, just a minute later, he was seen on CCTV, picked up by his mum. She found that CCTV. That's the other thing. The police missed so much. The police, right from day one, presumed Jack was just one of it. They actually even said this to, imagine as a mum, the police saying this to you with no evidence whatsoever. Oh, we think he fell in the water. Oh, say goodbye to your son. He's dead. He fell in the water. That's more or less what they said to Catherine. So she went out and did some of her own detective work, and she found CCTV that the police had missed. So he was seen walking over the top of the Plimsoll Bridge in the direction of Hotwells. Now, I've done quite a lot of videos about Jack's case. I might try and remember to put in there, if you look for the playlist, because Kathy, she did like a reconstruction of his walk and everything's very interesting. Anyway, at 3:30 a.m., 5 minutes later, he got a call back from the person at the party. He supposedly, now notice they say supposedly because we only have that person's word for it. He supposedly answered and he said hello, but nothing else. And then the phone cut off. And it didn't run out of battery because it was still showing on the network till nearly 7 o'clock. At 3:39, he was seen walking up the slip road Bennett Way on the left-hand side, which does have a narrow pavement, walking against the traffic. So then at 5:25 a.m., Jack's parents wake up and they realise he's not at home. And I heard Kathy on the interview on this morning saying, I knew instantly, I felt that he hadn't come home, and I went to his room, you could see he hadn't been home. That's when she started to panic. So the thing is, she knows her son. Like, sometimes my son goes out and he doesn't, because the thing is, here in Spain, the nightlife can go on till God knows what time. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me if I woke up and my son hadn't come home. Having said that, if he'd said he was on his way home and then he hadn't come home, yeah, that would be alarm bells, because there's no way my son would say to me, right, I'll be home in, I don't know, half an hour, or I'm on my way home, and then not come home. And Catherine knew that. And it's different in the UK. It's rare for people to be out till the early hours of the morning, isn't it? Like literally 6, 7 o'clock. Because things don't go on so late. And this is April, so it wasn't summer. So at 5:25, his parents woke up and realised he hadn't come home. At 5:40, so Kathy then goes on the Find My Phone app, because they're all on the Find My Phone app, and it says at 5:40 he is at an address at Granby Hill in the Hotwells area. Did he return to Hotwells? And he's only a few streets away from the party that he attended. My personal feelings are the answers to what happened to Jack lie at that address and in that area generally. He returned to that area. Otherwise, why was his phone showing that he was in that area? Somebody in that area knows what happened to Jack, I think. Because if he would have fallen into the water, why was his phone showing that he was there? And then at 6:44, so another hour later, his phone disconnected from the phone network. At 7:30, his parents phoned the police to report him missing, as this was so out of character for their son. Guess what? The police said it's too soon. Now, in a way, I understand the police. They don't know Jack. They're thinking, oh, he's 22-year-old lad. He's been out at a party. Maybe he got lucky. Maybe he's staying with a girl or a boy or whatever he's, I don't know his leanings. But, that's not unheard of, is it? But again, with someone like Jack, the problem is he would have let his mum know. You just know he would. He would have messaged her and said, oh, don't worry about me coming home tonight. I'm going back to the party, or I'm going back to someone's house for a few drinks, or, he wouldn't have just not gone home. So these on the website, as you can see here, you can see all the different sightings of him on the CCTV. He's definitely, to me, walking like he's had too much to drink. As Biscuit says, walking like a spaceman. And he would have been a target, wouldn't he? If somebody was driving around that area, looking for someone to mug, or maybe not particularly looking for someone, but just saw him and thought, oh, there you go. Jack was definitely a target, because it's clearly worse for where we drink, especially then if they would have seen him on the phone. So he had an iPhone, he's got designer trainers on. People have been murdered for less than designer trainers, haven't they? Watches, he had a nice watch on. So they phoned the police to report him missing. The police didn't want to know. And Jack's family contact Jack's friend and the party host to see if anyone knows where Jack is, but nobody has seen him. Now, whoever the party host was, or any of the people at the party, they have never been identified, publicly. And apparently they weren't interviewed formally, which I'm not sure why. And then it's not till 11:30 a.m. the police finally allow a missing person report to be filed by Jack's family. So here you go. We've got all the bits of, there he is. Oh, bless. I always do when I watch videos about cases and you see their last CCTV. It's very sad. You want to just reach in, don't you, and grab them and pluck them out, get them home safe. Yeah, so there's various CCTV of Jack. But, that's quite a clear one, isn't it? And that was at 3:08. I mean, just looking at that, you can tell he's had a few sherbets. There he is in the distance there. Now, when you watch the video, because there's a lot of vehicles. See how he's holding his hands like that? That's where he reminds me of, toddlers learning to walk. They sort of go, I remember with my son, like, put your hands out like that and just walk like Spotty the dog. But there was a lot of cars. Somebody saw Jack. I'm not saying somebody who did something bad to him, but there's somebody that was driving around there, and you would notice. I mean, I go and pick my son up at night. I notice people, who've had a bit too much to drink, maybe. Or having said that, then it's got to coincide. I quite often, obviously, because I cover true crime. If I didn't cover true crime, I wouldn't even think about it. But quite often you'll be driving along and you see something, you think a person on their own, a man, a woman, whatever, obviously drunk. And it always crosses my mind, oh, I hope they get home safe. I hope they get home safe. Because not only that you could get mugged or attacked, but you could get run over because there's people out there here, especially here at the moment, who are on holiday and have a few drinks before they get in their car and drive home. And so there's a lot of different catastrophes that might happen. So I often think about it, but how would I know? So, like, say I saw someone last night wandering along the road and thought, oh, I saw a girl. I think she was probably coming home from work or something like that. She had like a waitress's outfit on. She was on her phone, looking at her phone, walking up a very secluded sort of underpass nearby where I go and pick my son up. And I thought, oh, there was nobody around. You almost feel like stopping and offering her a lift. But of course, you probably think I was a murderer then or something. But how would I know? I mean, what if something did happen to that girl? How would I know? To say, would it be on the news, on the social media? And I'd say, oh, I saw that girl. Anyway, that's why it's important to, I don't always emphasize so much for people to share videos. But, when it comes to missing people, when they're just looking for that one chunk of information that might lead to Jack, Jack being found, or at least them finding out what happened to him, it is, I would like you to share the video. The more people that can watch this video, and especially go onto this website, which is a very good website. There he is again. So yeah, up there. Hey, bless him. So I think that's the clearest one, isn't it? But you can see from that clear one, he looks strong. He definitely looks strong. And of course he is. Young men get drunk, young people. So apparently there were over 400 vehicles passing through the area during that time. 400 vehicles. And we urge, this is the family, of course, we urge any cars, lorries, vans, taxis or buses that might have dash cam footage to come forward. We also urge residents local to the area in which Jack was last seen to check household security cameras and doorbells for footage of Jack passing by. And if you have any footage which corresponds, please report it to the police. And you've got call 101, and then you've got the reference number 522-4055172. But it's all there on the website. So how can you help? Share Jack's story. Until Jack is found, we must keep his story in the public eye. Please help us to do this. Talk to friends. Continue to share our social media links, this website, and new articles about his disappearance. Share the website. Now, it's interesting because, wherever you're from, same here. You can talk to people who live locally about what you think of as a high-profile case because you're maybe interested in true crime or whatever, or you've noticed it, and you'll say to someone, I did it with Nicola Bulley, with people who lived that I knew that lived quite close to where Nicola Bulley. Oh, the Nicola Bulley case, and they go, oh no, what's that? Not everybody knows cases. We're familiar with. Me and my followers, we're familiar with the Jack O'Sullivan case because we've been following it. But there'll be loads of people in Hotwells, in Bristol, have ever heard of Jack O'Sullivan. So the more we can share it, the better. Okay, and then there's frequently asked questions. Now, this is the new evidence. This is the deputy Harbour Master's report. And this was unsolicited second supplementary report into the disappearance of Jack O'Sullivan. And this is Michael John Ferguson. He volunteered this information because he got to hear about Jack's case, and he does not think Jack is in the water. He is the harbour master. He was. I was employed as deputy harbour master at Bristol Harbour Authority between November 2011 to July 2019. Then he talks about his responsibilities. In fact, you know what I'm going to do on a separate video? I'm just going to read this out for people. I'm not going to read it all out in this video because I'm running short of time. But, you know, so these were all his responsibilities. And so I think you can safely say he's got a lot of experience. 40 years experience of sailing, powerboating, including search and rescue operations. He was a Marine Services officer. He was a volunteer with Suicide Prevention UK. 5 years experience being employed with the ambulance service. Then he goes through all his qualifications. So he said, I have been asked to prepare this report by representatives of Catherine O'Sullivan. Oh, I thought he'd done it unsolicited. So don't forget, she's got a private investigator now. Following the disappearance of Catherine's son, Jack. In the Hotwells area. So it has been suggested by Avon and Somerset police that the person in the CCTV footage is Jack, and it shows him falling into the River Avon. What? It has been suggested by Avon and Somerset police that the person in the CCTV footage is Jack O'Sullivan, and it shows him falling into the River Avon, though this remains unconfirmed at this time. Sorry, I just don't understand that. Either he's shown falling into the river or he isn't. So he says, though I haven't personally viewed the CCTV footage, I am reliably informed by those that have. It shows very unclear images of an unidentified person at or near the What Three Words location, translated Lung Square. Do I need to go into this more closely? The person disappears from view at 4 a.m. And this is the only section of the River Avon that does not have a significant mudbank. There is no evidence the person entered the water, nor can they be identified as Jack. And due to the perspective of the video, the person may have simply tripped, then been obscured from view by a wall that runs alongside the towpath in the given area. I am informed that the CCTV footage appears not to be continuous. Therefore, the person could simply have recovered themselves, got up and walked out of sight of the camera. This theory is backed up by a reconstruction video created by James Ward and my subsequent visit to the area. Due to these facts, I will refer to the person as Missing Person 3 throughout this report. I have approached this report from a neutral, unbiased stance, using my experience and knowledge in this field. Now, I don't think I'm going to have time, sadly, to go through all this because he goes into all the tides, behaviour of a body entering the water, etc., the River Avon. So it's a very comprehensive report. I need to look at that in more. Now, you're right, Biscuit, the River Avon leads to the Bristol Channel. He could have gone out to sea. I mean, this is a possibility. But the question still remains, why was his phone pinging from the address back at Hotwells. Could that be possible? If Jack had fallen into the water and he was floating around in the sea or whatever, how was his phone still on until 6:44 or whatever it was, and pinging at the address in Hotwells? We said we need to look at this, don't we? So the police did search the water. Anyway, let's just quickly look at his conclusions. It must be stated it's remarkable how the latest CCTV evidence has only come to light a year, 8 months and 26 days since the day of Jack's disappearance. Had the evidence been produced at or near the time of the event, then a search for a body would have been a relatively easy process. Had proper expert opinion been sought and acted upon. This is, of course, assuming that the CCTV shows beyond doubt a person entering the water. Well, does it or doesn't it? It is equally remarkable that the subsequent searches carried out at and around the time of Jack's disappearance provided no results. He says, I find it remarkable the body was not sighted around low tide for the whole period of submersion. Gosh, is he going to be found one day in the water like that? Yeah, I've got to do a separate video about this because there's a lot to it, isn't there? There's a lot to it. You know, I mean, we have to face the fact it's always a possibility that it's gone into the water. And of course, there's silt on the bottom. So he's talking about the silt. And yeah, I agree with you, Biscuit. I mean, he may have been mugged of his phone. You know, when he answered the phone, so his friend said, he answered the phone, he said hello, and then the phone cut off. That could have been somebody yanking it out of his hand, couldn't it? You know, I feel like we've got an incomplete picture. How drunk was Jack? Was there an altercation at the party? Why didn't he say to his mum, yeah, come and pick me up? Believe me, my son, I would have only had to say, shall I come and pick you up, Irwin? Yeah, come and pick me up. No, very strange. Yeah, maybe he didn't even have his phone. Oh no, he must have had his phone with him when he left the party because he messaged his mum. So it is a real mystery, isn't it? And now, after that report, I think it looks even more mysterious. Is he in this water? At least something would have been found. You know, his clothes, his belongings, something. Nothing has been found. It's very mysterious, I think, this case, personally. The problem is everything's possible. You know, maybe he did go into the water. Or maybe something more untoward. I think Catherine thinks, his mum thinks, he may have been taken away in a vehicle. Which is possible too. It's all possible, isn't it? That's the, you know, don't know. And Catherine said in this interview she did on This Morning, she said her whole waking hours, are thinking about Jack. What happened to him? Where is he? You know, is he safe? Is he suffering? He was found, funnily enough, what you're saying there, Biscuit. There was another young lad who was actually ended up being found in the Netherlands, washed up in the Netherlands, went into the sea in the UK and ended up just looking at his little face, bless him. Anyway, this is the story. Has this just been one terrible accident? Or is there some foul play been found? Surely his jacket maybe even, or something would have been found. But of course the sea is a big place, isn't it? So, you know, people can get washed away and end up in a current and end up in the sea and end up God knows where. Jesus. Let me just look at that other case. There was definitely a case not long ago because, well, I remember it was about the similar time when Jack went missing. Yeah, crash in July 2023. Let me show you, this is AI that's coming up. Let me just make sure it's sharing. I mean, it's unbelievable. So this poor lad, he had a car crash. Thank you. He had a car crash, Liam Graham. He was thought to be disorientated after a head injury after the car crash. He was from Stoke in Medway, Kent, and he just wandered off disorientated. And the authority, and he was found in the North Sea by the Dutch authorities. And the authorities concluded he likely entered the water accidentally at the Thames estuary, and because he could not swim, the tides carried him out into the open sea, and he was not recovered until 4 months later. Kent police confirmed that Dutch authorities in Rotterdam had recovered his remains from the north. So it can happen that people fall into the sea or fall into an estuary or into a river, get swept out to sea and end up in another country. But let's not forget that young lad was found. Where is Jack? Where is he? But you know, I mean, I suppose obviously the best case scenario is that Jack is safe and well somewhere. But you know, much as I'd like to be positive, that's quite difficult. But I understand why Catherine, his mum, is trying to hold on to that hope. Is this what will happen one day? That we'll just find someone will find some of Jack's belongings or his jacket, or, you know. Anyway, I hope for Catherine's sake, for the family's sake, of course, for his dad as well and his brother. But you know, Catherine seems to she's the one who does most of the interviews, etc. I hope she gets some answers. Sadly, they may not end up being the answers she would like. But when he graduated, he was on the brink of becoming a man, really, wasn't he? He secured a job, like an internship, I think, you know, after university. He was going into law. He had his whole life in front of him. And sadly, something's happened to him because if after 2.5 years he hasn't contacted his mum, that to me suggests, obviously, because he was so close to his mum, if Jack could in any way, shape, or form contact his mum, he would have. He would. Well, I hope she gets to find out one day what happened to him. Bless him. Yeah, out at a party. So there is a lesson, of course, to be learned by this, though. You know, when we're young, we do daft things, and I think all you can do is talk to the young adults in your family, whoever they are, try and instill into them, don't walk near water late when you've been drinking or taking substances or whatever. Stay away from the water, just stick to lit roads. How could he have fallen into the river? But anyway, people do fall in, so it's very common. I think it's much more common than we even imagine, so it is possible, of course. But if somebody's been responsible for Jack's disappearance, then they need to be held accountable, don't they? So okay, so yeah, I'm going to go through that PDF report. I'll probably do a video about, separate, but not live, but just record like what's said in it and publish that so that people can listen to it. So I'm sure you'll all share with me in prayers that hope some resolution is found with this case, that one way or another this family gets to find out what's happened to their beautiful loved one, Jack O'Sullivan. So thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Jack. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Don't forget to leave your DNA on the subscribe button, the like button, and the share button. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Till then, may your God go with you. Bye.